Welcome to Livewire at Home. I'm at home, you're at home. We have a great episode for you today as we are seeing that even in the most challenging times, God has a purpose for you. You were created for a special purpose, and who knows, even this quarantine time might be exactly what God created you for. And go about making some fun would you rather choices. So join us this episode. Let me give you a couple ways to bring the hope to our community, because that is what we are all about, bringing the hope and healing of Christ one family at a time. So here's what you can do. First, Meals on Wheels. They are an amazing organization that is providing meals and encouragement and support to our most vulnerable members of our society, our senior citizens right now. So there is a donate button right now to the Meals on Wheels program. So click and donate what you can. Second, we're going to start this week with a weekly challenge, bringing the hope. So every week I'm going to tell you of a new way that you can bring the hope. And if you do that, and if you post a picture of yourself doing it with the hashtag bringing the hope, you will get 1,000 points to our challenge and be put in a drawing for a $10 gift card to a local business. This week's local business is the Sketching Pad, a great way to get some take and paint stuff to pass the time when you're at home. And this week's challenge is to write and decorate cards for our health workers. In the description, there is the address that you can send the cards to encourage our health workers during this difficult time. So take a picture of the cards, put it in the comments, or create a new post with the hashtag bringing the hope and send that to encourage some workers today. Let's start things off with a discussion question. What is your favorite superhero? To further enhance your experience, we have two great songs for you. The first is My God is So Big by Go Fish.
My God is so big and so strong and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big and so strong and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do.
And the second is Never Be Shaken by Justin Anderson. The link to both of those are in the description below. Now it's time to get into our Bible story. Our Bible story takes place in a different area than it normally is. This takes place in Susa, a capital city in the Persian Empire. See, about 100 to 120 years before this event, Judah was captured and destroyed by the Babylonians, and they took everyone living there and scattered them throughout the entire empire so they wouldn't be able to work together to overthrow the Babylonians. Well, another nation had come along and destroyed the Babylonians. They were called the Persians. Now, the Persians had a new king called Xerxes. So his advisors said, we should search the land and find the best ladies for you, and you can choose one of them to be your queen. And one of those ladies was the hero of the story, Esther. Now, Esther was an orphan, and she lived under the care of her uncle Mordecai. And Mordecai watched her and took care of her as she grew up. And Esther was dragged away from Mordecai and put into the palace. And when she finally got to see the king fell in love with her and named her the queen. At the same time that he made Esther queen, he raised up and made second in command the big villain of our story, Haman. Haman became the most trusted advisor to the king. He was second in command. And whenever he went out, people would bow down before him. As he was walking through the city, people would bow down. Everyone except Esther's uncle Mordecai. Mordecai refused to bow down. He knew that only God was worthy of worship, and he would only bow down to God. What would you do? If you were in Mordecai's shoes, would you bow down to Haman, or would you bow only to God? As you're making these hard decisions, let's get another one for you. Would you rather brush your teeth with soap or drink sour milk? Answer in the comments below. Now, because Esther was in the palace, Mordecai would hang out by the palace and wait for her and keep an eye out for her. And while he was out hanging out by the palace, he overheard two guards talking. And they were whispering to each other. And the guards were plotting and planning. Late at night, they were going to sneak back into the king's chamber and murder him and stab him to death. Mordecai overheard the plan. What would you do if you were Mordecai? Would you tell the king about the plot? Or would you pretend that you did not hear anything? Talk about it and answer in the comments below. As you're thinking about hard questions, here's another hard question for you. Would you rather have an elephant-sized cat or a cat-sized elephant? Comment with your answers below. Mordecai took that information and gave it to Esther so that Esther was able to tell the king that Mordecai told her that there was a plot against his life. And so it happened late one night. The guards snuck it back into the king's chamber. And as they were going to stab, a large group of guards rushed in, snatched them away, and protected and saved the king's life. And it was officially noted in the books of the kings that Mordecai saved the king's life. Meanwhile, Haman was getting more and more furious. As he had gotten more and more power and more control, his pride was filled up, and he was certain that everyone should bow down to him. And every time he passed Mordecai hanging out by the palace, he became more and more furious at Mordecai. And so he hatched this horrible plan. He was going to not just kill Mordecai. He was going to kill every single Jew because they would refuse to bow down to him. And so Haman went to the king and said, I know of this group of troublemakers and we need to get rid of them right away. And they chose a date in the future, and they gave a command that everyone was to kill these Jews and ransack their place and keep everything for themselves. And when Mordecai heard this, he began weeping and wailing, and he covered himself with sackcloth. So Esther sent a servant to go check on him. And Mordecai told Esther the horrible news. He and all his people were going to die. And Esther said, What can I do? What do you want me to do in this? And Mordecai said, you can help. You can speak to the king. And Esther said, I can't go before the king unless I've been called. If I do that, they will put me to death right on the spot. But Mordecai looked at Esther and said, you don't know. Maybe, just maybe, God put you in this place for this exact moment. Maybe you are here for just a time as this. And so Esther went back to pray about what she would do. She fasted and prayed for 3 days. What would you do? Would you risk your life and go to the king? Or would you keep quiet? As you're making a tough decision, here's another one. Would you rather have one eye in the center of your forehead or 2 noses? Comment with your answer below. Esther knew that she didn't have much power. She was just one girl. What could she do to save these people? But Mordecai assured her that God had a special purpose and a special plan for her life. And maybe, just maybe, God would use her in an amazing way. And guess what? You are in a similar position. There is something big and scary going on right now. And you may think, I'm just a kid, I'm just one person. What could I possibly do to make a difference? But God has put you in the place you are right now to make an impact, to make a difference. You may have a neighbor who needs to be taken care of in this time. You may have a teacher who's confused and frustrated and needs some hope. You may be in position to give food or give toys to those who are in need. There are a lot of things that you can do to bring hope and healing right now. So, I want you to take a moment and talk together as a family about the spot you're in. Where can you be most useful? Where can you make a difference? Where can you bring hope? Talk about that and share what you're going to do in the comments below. So Haman was out to kill not just Mordecai, but all the Jews. And Esther had the big decision to make. What am I going to do? So after praying and fasting for 3 days, she decided to go to the king. She was going to break the law, go before the king, and she said, if I perish, I will perish. If I die, I die. This is worth the risk. And so Esther walked to the king. She walked inside the court. And the king, when he saw her, reached out his golden scepter and said, hey, welcome, you can come. What do you want? I'll give you anything you want, up to half the kingdom. And Esther said, I just want to invite you to a banquet I prepared. You and Haman come to a special banquet with me. And the king was excited and thrilled and said, go get Haman quickly and bring him to this banquet. So they had a great meal. And the king at the end of the meal said, Esther, what do you want? What do you need? And Esther said, come to one more banquet tomorrow, and I will tell you. And the king said, yes, Haman and I will be there. And on the way home, Haman felt so proud. He was strutting down going, hey, I am really special. I am awesome. I just had a meal where it was just the king and me. It was amazing. But he passed Mordecai on the way. And Mordecai refused to bow to him. And instead of thinking about all the awesome things that just happened, he focused on the one bad thing. Don't we do that a lot? Instead of focusing on all the great things and being grateful, we find one bad thing and we dwell on it and think about it all the time. If we just learn to be grateful instead of negative, we'd have a much better life. But Haman couldn't do that. He became so furious. He was filled with rage toward Mordecai. He rushed home and told his wife everything, and was said, I am so angry. I can't enjoy any of these things until I know Mordecai is dead. And his wife said, build the largest pole ever to impale Mordecai on. Make it over 6 feet tall so that everyone can see. Then go get the king to give you permission to impale Mordecai on the spot. Do it tonight. And Mordecai thought that was a great idea. So he walked to the king. Meanwhile, the king was having trouble falling asleep. And so he had a scribe come and read his favorite story, a story about him. And when they got to the part of the plot to kill him, and how someone had told them about the plot so that they could catch them in the act and saved his life, the king asked, did anyone give anything to Mordecai for saving my life? And the scribe said, no. And so the king started thinking, what can I do to thank Mordecai for saving my life? And he said, who's out in the courtyard? I'll ask them. And Haman had just arrived to ask to kill Mordecai. And Haman went up. And the king said, before you get to your thing, let me ask you, what should I do to someone I'm super pleased in? And Haman thought, oh, you must be talking about me. I am really special. And Haman said, here's what you do. You take your finest robe and you put it over this guy. You put him on your best horse. And then you take your highest servant and have him bring him around the city. And as he's riding on the horse in your amazing robes, shout out, this is what the king does to someone he likes. And the king said, that's a great idea. You should go do that for Mordecai. Haman was flustered. His arch enemy, he was supposed to go around and praise him all day. But it was the king's order. So Haman took Mordecai, threw the robe on him, put it on the horse, and went around and said, this is what the king does to someone he likes, and did it all day. And when he finally got home after doing that, he had just a moment to scream, this isn't right! This isn't fair! I want Mordecai dead now! When servants arrived to take him to the banquet. So, at the banquet, Esther and the king and Haman ate, and Haman just sulked in the corner. Until at the end of the feast, the king asked Esther, what do you want? And Esther said, there's someone out there trying to kill all my people. And the king was furious and said, who would do such a thing? And Esther said, it's Haman. And the king, in anger, took Haman and said, what should we do with him? And someone said, he just built this huge pole to impale somebody on. We should use that. And so Haman was destroyed with the very thing he was going to use to kill Mordecai. And the king issued a decree declaring that the Jews can protect themselves and calling everyone to protect the Jews so that they would not be destroyed. And because of what Esther did, all the Jews were saved. Esther stood up for what was right. She chose to do an amazing and hard thing. And you can too. She was just the person for the time. And you can be just the person to make a difference in someone's life. God has you where you are for just this time as this. What are you going to do with it? And now it's time for the challenge. You have 94,500 points, which means you are almost there to 100,000 points. And when we get to 100,000 points, yes, I will videotape myself getting drenched with ice cold water. So, how do we get to 100,000 points? Well, here's how. The first way is our monthly memory verse. Our monthly memory verse is John 3:16 and 17. It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but so the world through him might be saved. That's John 3:16 and 17. So let's practice that memory verse. What we're going to do is we're going to say part of the memory verse, and then I'm going to have you choose what word should go next. Are you ready? So when I give you the opportunity, shout out what word should go next. For God so did he love or hated? That's right, he loved. Did he love the world or the galaxy? Yep, that's right, he loved the world. That he gave his favorite or was it his only? Yes, you're right. It was his one and only Son. That whoever, was it believes or does good? That's right. It's believes. Way to go. Will not, was it sneeze or perish? That's right. It was perish. Will not perish. So, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting. Is it gum or is it life? That's right, it's life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. For God, he did or did not send. That's right, God did not send his Son into, is it the cross? or is it the world? That's right, it is the world. For God did not send his Son into the world to, is it condemn or praise the world? That's right, it's condemn. God did not send his Son to condemn the world, but so the world through him might be, is it saved or destroyed? That's right, it is saved. Way to go, guys. If you answered all those correct, that means you know the memory verse really well, so you should get points for that. Videotape yourself saying the memory verse and post it using the hashtag bringing the hope. That's 1,000 points each. The second way to earn points is by saying Julie's challenge. Julie's challenge is something like knowing all 12 disciples. So if you can tell me all 12 disciples, videotape yourself doing that and send it to me or post it with the hashtag bringing the hope, that is worth 2,000 points. The third way is to share this video. Every share on Facebook of this video is worth 5,000 points. And finally, our weekly challenge. I mentioned it at the beginning of the episode. Our challenge this week for 1,000 points and a chance to get in a drawing for a $10 gift card to the sketching pad is make an encouraging note for our hospital workers. Send it to our hospital, take a picture of that encouraging note, and post it in the comments or using the hashtag bringing the hope, and that is worth 1,000 points and a chance for a $10 gift card. Thank you for joining me this episode. Our next episode is going to be our last one that we do on Wednesday nights. We'll still do our Sunday ones, but this will be our last Wednesday night episode. Then the next week we're going to have a big Zoom party. So look out for the information about the Zoom party next Wednesday the 29th. We will be talking our next episode about Jesus' ascension into heaven. Don't want to miss that. Have a great week.